these gaps. So are these the right things for me to be filling in today? Cool. Nodding heads. So then today I have thrown together 4 exercises for us to run through together. The first one is to show you rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock with an array to help make you more comfortable with arrays. And then copying an array, which is also to help you become more comfortable with arrays and functions as well. Then we will go through report card together and make sure everyone understands it so that you're not moving on without understanding that. And then we will fill in the background that you need in order to do tic-tac-toe. And then I'm going to let you attempt tic-tac-toe again. So we're not actually going to go over the answers to tic-tac-toe, but we're going to go over all the background that we should have given you before you started working on it. And then let you attempt it again from 8:30 to 9:30, and then at home after that if you want to keep working on it, and see how that goes. So that's the deal, and tic-tac-toe will be due again on Sunday, I guess. But also we're going to go over, on Thursday, we're going to go over week 4 stuff. So you might want to do it before Thursday and then just move on to week 4 at that point. But that's your personal decision. Okay. So this one is just going to be a demo because I know that often before you get started, it helps to just see it done first, to see some examples. And we'll share this code with you later, so you can just kind of watch and follow along here. If I can figure out what I'm doing. There we go. Can everyone read my screen? Is that big enough? No? How about now? Getting closer? Might want to come closer and sit up here or something. I went back halfway and I couldn't read this, but I have really bad vision. Unfortunately, my screen is really small as well, so it's hard to fit a lot. Okay.
If I'm doing a Google Hangout, is it not possible? Should I turn on the camera and film?
No, we'll just share the code afterward, and then the person watching the Hangout can open the code and look at it themselves. Only if you want to. Your call. Okay. So I think most of you guys did this lab problem and didn't really struggle with it too much. And the way you did it, so I'll have you all quickly walk me through how you solved it. So what did you change void to? Do you remember? So this is rock, paper, scissors choices. So this was a simplified version of rock, paper, scissors, where all we did was we took the 2 numbers, 0 and 2, as the arguments, and then we wrote this function called choice to string that converts that number to the string name of what the people number choice, 1, and we print out we return, sorry, we don't print out, we return the word choice, paper, right? So we have our essential words, public static, and then this is the return type. So what should the return type be? String. Is there anyone who doesn't understand why it's string? Yes. Yeah, so it's string because I said that we want to return the word form, like lizard or Spock, and the way we represent words is with strings. So we're choosing to return a string because we need to return a word. Yeah. Are there any other questions about why it's string? Okay. So then here we have our input. So how many inputs do we have? This is actually a kind of tricky question. You're thinking of the 5 different possibilities it could be? So there are 5 different possibilities. But for our function, we only have one input because what we want to do, so I think one important thing here is to, when you're approaching these,
It's just like the input?
38 is, so you're exactly right about 39. So 39 is just the string word rock, right? I actually could do lowercase rock. That would be prettier, right? This one is a variable, and if we want to find what a variable's value is, we go look for where it was written int rock. This is where it was defined, and it was given the value of 0. So rock, all caps, is just a variable whose value is 0. And we're using it to represent rock. So this would be exactly the same, and some of you probably did that. Did anyone write it this way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's exactly equivalent. But this is a little bit easier to read, so that if you forget which number rock is, it doesn't actually matter. It's up here for you, right? Okay. And note that I said return rather than system.out.println. What's the difference between return and system.out.println? Oh, that was a hand going up, but it was just some glasses adjusting.
So for return, that is what the function is going to give you, while system.out is going to actually print it out when you run the thing.
Yeah. So we're going to return it rather than printing it because we actually want to print it in the middle of a sentence up from our main one, right? If we wanted to just print it by itself, we could print it from here. Okay. So then we have this else if statement with some other options. And what's beautiful about those variables where we assigned them the values is I don't actually have to remember which of them was which number as I'm typing this out, right? I just write, well, if choice is equal to the Spock constant, then I return Spock, and I don't have to know what number that was. Okay, so I'm not going to type them all out because it'll take a while. So then from up here in our function, we would do, first we parse the arguments, right? And you guys, I really hope, know how to do that by now. Again, for this one. Okay. So now I have my arguments, and the way I get that argument as a string is I call the function. So in order to make it all fit on the screen, you should keep your doc strings. I'm just doing it so it all shows up on the screen at once. So in order to convert choice 1 to its string form, what do I do? So if I do string choice 1 as a string, what do I put here? So what I want to do here is I want to call the function that we just wrote in order to convert the choice to a string. So we're going to use our function. So how do I use the function? Blank stares. Okay. We may need some more practice problems on this. We can come up with some more problems for you guys to do later, maybe. So the way you call a function is you take the function name, you write function name, open parenthesis, whatever our input is, so in this case we want choice 1, closed. So what this does is it calls choice to string with the input of choice 1, and it takes that string value and it puts it in this variable. Are there any questions about how this works? So this was what we did in the functions class in week 3. Okay, so an alternative. So let's go simple. Rather than using our args, for now let's just use something that we know what its value is. So let's do int x equals 0, choice to string 0. And then I'm going to print out the result. X. So what's this going to print?
Rock.
Yes. Why?
Is saying to, since x is equals 0, 0 is rock. It's just gonna print out rock.
So x is equal to 0. So let's go line by line. That's exactly right. So in line 21, x is equal to 0. In line 22, we call choice to string with x as the input. So we call choice to string with 0 as the input. So then we reach choice to string here, and choice is 0 because that's how the input got passed in. So the value 0 gets assigned to choice. And then we go if choice is equal to rock, note that rock is 0 so it is equal. We return rock as a string. So now we come back here, and rock as a string gets returned from here and assigned to this variable. And so now the value of x as a string is, quote, rock. And now when we print out x as a string, we're printing, quote, rock. That's a lot of steps. Are there any questions about all of those steps? Does it make sense? Okay. So let's run it and see that happen. Oh no. Just differently. Did everyone see what just happened? Did you guys catch what I did wrong? I was trying to parse the input. There we go. Okay, so we got rock. So that's expected. So I'm just going to leave main as is. We're not going to go through how to do all of the main stuff. I want to show you an alternative using arrays. So this is your basic how I use functions. Oh, I also should mention this and this are the same thing, right? That's as a variable. This is just as the literal 0, but they do the same thing. So similarly, if I wanted to do the integer.parseInt, I could use choice 1 instead, right? And then I can run it with 0, and it does the same thing. Are there any questions about what I just did there? Did everyone follow that? Why those are equivalent? A lot of this stuff, there's a lot of variations on every piece of code you write, just because you can choose where you want to stick a variable and where you want to use the literal value, right? So I could have, rather than assigning the result of choice to string to this variable, I could have just stuck it straight in my system.out.println statement, like this. I didn't need to assign it to an intermediate variable, right? And similarly, with x, I could have just passed the 0. I didn't need to assign it to an intermediate variable. Can anyone see another place where I could have bypassed the intermediate variable? Yeah.
The system.out part, like in the parentheses, you could just put choice to string, choice 1.
Yeah. But I could even go further. So if I do this, what if I wanted my whole program to fit in one line? Can I do it?
Main?
What's that, Brian? Ask
Oh.
Google. No, not main, or just the contents of main to fit in one line. So I can take this further. I don't need choice 1 either. I could just replace it with that. Now this is super hard to read, right? And that's why we don't write code like this. Because that runs, it works, whoop. Not if I leave my dead code behind. That runs, right? But can you tell by looking at this what it does? Not really. So that's why we use these variables in between. That's why I assign choice 1 to a variable, and I assign the result to a variable. Because then it helps us keep track, oh yeah, this was our choice, this is converting it to a string, this is where we print it out. So it helps us break it down into steps. There's so many blank stares tonight. Have I completely lost you, or is this like already obvious? We're good? Can I see like a scale of thumbs from everyone? Are we here? Are we here? Okay. So we're mostly up-ish. Okay, that's good. I should start doing that check more often, because you guys are good at the blank stare. Okay, so I'm going to move on. That was our brief review of how functions work. So now let's do a brief review of arrays. So I just want to show you that there's an alternative to how you do this problem, rather than doing this big else if block. Because notice I got lazy and I didn't even type out the end of it because there were too many else ifs. So there is a much shorter way to do this using arrays. It's kind of a trick, right? And I can make an array. Let's call it string. Options as strings. And I can make the contents of it be, in order, all of my string versions. So now, when I want to convert an integer to a string, I can directly convert the array of the index, the index of the array to the value of the array, right? So at index 0 in this array, the value is rock. And at index 1 in this array, the value is paper. Does everyone see why that's true? How the index matches the value? So now we have this cool little trick where all we have to do is take the value at that index, and then we get the string version that we want. So I don't need any of this nonsense anymore. Whoops, I need this one. So choice is my integer version, right? So if choice is 0, then I want rock. And if choice is 1, then I want paper. And if choice is 2, then I want scissors. So I can do string result is equal to. Does anyone know what I'm about to type? Does anyone want to volunteer? No? Okay. What does this code do? Am I calling a function? I'm actually not calling a function because these are square braces rather than parentheses. So when you call a function, you do the name of the function parentheses. But when you get the value in an array, it's kind of similar, right? And I think that's why it's structured similarly. But when you get the value in an array, you do array name, square bracket, index. So to give you a more simple example, if I had an array of integers, and my values were 1, 2, 7, 44, negative 3. I should do this for names. And then I did system.out.println numbers with the index of 1. What's it going to print? 2, because we start counting at 0, because this is computer science. So what did I do? That would have taken me a while to figure out. Thank you.
8.
Okay. Oh my gosh, my life is a struggle. It would have been a good learning experience that we won't have because Jeff knows how to write. Okay. Oh, this is sad times. Okay, sorry guys. Ignore my nonsense. Focus on lines 26 and 27, and you can ignore all the junk I just went through. That was my bad. Okay, so line 26 and 27. I have an array of numbers, and I printed out numbers 1, and the value of that is 2, right? If I were to do numbers negative 3, whoop, what did I do wrong here? What's that?
This is command, you have 0 right now.
Yeah, I have the input and I don't actually use it, but I do parse it, actually. So that's not a problem. We're not using it, but it's just hanging out there. Okay, so this prints out -3. What if I do this? What is it going to print out? I heard it from somewhere in the back. 7. Does anyone disagree with that? Yes, it is 7. Jordan, can you tell us why it's 7?
5 array and 7. 5 minus 0, and go 0 for 1, 1 for 2, 2 for 7. So right.
Exactly. Yep. So this is 5, this is 2, and then it goes 0, 1, 2. So we're at 7. Everyone good with this so far? So you're going to need to use the dot length later on. So anytime you want to know where does this array end, you can use dot length. And if you're ever not sure what dot length is going to be, you can always just put it in a variable and do system.out.println, and it'll tell you what the value of it is. Okay. So where was I? So that's our example of getting the index of an array and using it to get the values. So now coming back to our choice to string example. Okay, so that is our trick example of how to use an array to make what would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plus Julie got lazy lines of code be only 3 lines of code. Do you guys feel more comfortable with arrays now? Do you want more practice problems?
I think practice problems would be helpful.
Okay. We can try and come up with some more and maybe create a bonus lab for this week with some review problems. So what I mean by this is we're going to write a function a string array. You guys should be looking at me like I'm crazy. Okay, I got a few more crazy looks. Okay, so why would we ever do this? Well, if we have an array, and then we have another array. So suppose, for example, that my top array is, rather than just being integers, let's say it's something like the bicycles, the list of bicycles that we are looking at on campus, right? And let's suppose that we want to filter those bicycles so that there are fewer of them. Well, we can't exactly take them out of array 1. So the typical way to do this would be to create another array that has some subset of the elements, right? So like that. And then it means that when you go and you create another filter, like, okay, this one, I know I'm just showing numbers because I'm not going to write bicycles out, right? But this one is only the bicycles that are under $75. And maybe I delete that filter, and I now want to filter by bicycles that are a particular material, like whatever the heavy ones are. So that one might be only these groups, right? So we might want to make copies of an array that have variations. And if we had modified A, and we had said A is equal to 1, 5, -1 at the start, now we lost some of our original information. So the reason you would want to create a new copy of something is so that you can create variants on it without losing the original data, so that later I can come back and create a different variant. Does that make sense of the motivation of creating a copy of an array? So then I could create a complete copy of it down here, 1, 2, 5, -1. And then start messing with it. Maybe pass it into a function, have the function change it. And then it doesn't matter that B got changed because we still have our original. Okay, so what we're going to write is a function that, in this case, I said string. So it'll take a string array, A as input, and it'll give us string B back, and B is an exact copy of A. Okay. Does anyone have a thought on how you would do that? Does it seem easy or hard? So what if I did copy all my elements in the B. So let me just rewrite my example there where there's circles, since our problem is for circles. So let's say is hello. So those are the strings. And now I have string B. And I want it to be a copy of A. If I do this, is it a copy of A? Yeah. That's great. So I intentionally kind of tried to trick you here. So do you guys remember the lecture where off on the side it had like these boxes that were like 5 and 0, and then it had A pointing here and B pointing here, or something like that. It had all these beautiful pictures that Jeff did. Okay. So this is that catching me up. And that's why I wanted to draw attention to it, because this is very easy to make this. So what this does is creates a space over here in your memory, and it puts 3 blocks in it. And the first one points to hello, the next one points to AP, the next one points to class. And we had A pointing to the whole thing. And what our second line of code does is it has B point to the whole thing. So B now has the same contents as A, but here's the problem. If we change B, we're like, okay, we're going to do our filter on B and we're going to modify it. We change B, we change A. That makes sense? And so we can't really call it a copy. We just have a new variable that's still pointing at A. But what we want is a true copy. So we want to create a new array over here that points to hello, AP, and class. That's what our assignment is here. So we want to write code that does this instead of this. So that then I can mess with B, I can change it up however I want, and I still have my original. So then I can create another copy called C, and I can mess with C. I can create another copy called T, and I can mess with that one. And I always have my base one. Okay. Are we good with what we're trying to do? Let's make it happen. Okay. So I will create a new file. Or, this one's already cluttered enough. I'll clutter it some more.
It's a bad idea.
Okay, you know what? Just to set a good example, I'll write a new file.
Just a question.
Yeah.
How do you do that thing where you select it all and then just add, like, the comment slashes in front of all of them?
Control/.
Controls. Okay, thank you.
I actually did like a Cloud9
Ooh.
keyboard shortcuts tutorial one day. Like, aha, I can learn all the keyboard tricks. Alright. So, I have a hello world somewhere. I'm copying my hello world in. If you'd like to follow along, feel free. We will also share this at the end. Great. So I have array copy. Hello world runs. Good. And so I have my string A is equal to this. And I want string B to have identical contents. So that's what I'm working on. And I should probably do something that prints out the contents of A or B, or probably just B to make sure that it has the right contents. So let's do 4. You guys remember this for each loop? This is a for each loop. So I did teach you this, right? I get lost in time sometimes. I think I taught this. So this was week 4. So we're being a little bit ahead, but not really. So we do this thing for each of the words in B. We're going to print out word. So this is just going to print out the contents of B, right? It's going to go over each of the elements of B, and it's going to print them out. Okay, so now we can see what B is. I might as well do the same thing for A, so that we can, now it'll, let's just do it this way. So confusing. So now it'll be clear which is which. So I'm going to do it twice. But the first time it'll say A is, and the second time it'll say B is. We'll know which is which. Okay. So what do you expect this to print out when I run it? What does line 6 print? Come on, this is easy. What does line 6 print?
A is.
A is. All right. What does line 8 print the first time we go through it? I heard some different things. The first time we go through, it's going to print hello. This goes once for each word in A. Line 7 says for word in A. So for each word in A, we do this. So first we do hello. And then the next time it goes around, it prints AP. And the next time it goes around, it prints class. Are there any questions about that? Okay. So what does 11 print?
B is.
Okay. And what does 13 print the first time we go through it? Each word of B. And what are the words of B? Is that true? There's nothing in B right now. So we go through for each word in B, but there are no words in B, so it never does anything right now. Because right now B is empty. Okay, so it's going to print A is hello AP class, B is blank. And just to prove it, oh, I have an error. Apparently I can't do that for a blank array. Now it actually has nothing in it. Okay, we're good. I want it to print prettier than this. Do you know what this line 11 does? Or can you guess? Yeah, it's printing a blank line for us. Okay. We're good so far. So now we need to actually write the copy code. So we have the code to print out A and B once we've done this. Between which lines do we want to put our copy code? Or approximately where do we want to put our copy code? Does the question not make sense? We have A, but we don't have B yet. And after we do all the copying, we want to print them out. So we want to do it right here. Is it not clear to anyone why we would put it right there in the code? Why would we put it there? Because the reason that I have all of this printing stuff is so that we can make sure that our copy worked. So we first want to copy it, and then we want to print out the results to make sure it worked. We also could put it here, but A is not really going to change either way. At least it shouldn't. So it shouldn't matter where we put it relative to printing A. But we want to at least copy before we print out B. Okay. So I said write a function in my problem description because we need practice writing functions. So rather than just putting the code right here, we're going to write a function that copies the contents of A to B. Well, first let's do it without a function to be sure you understand how to do it, and then we'll do it with a function so that we kind of work our way into it. Hopefully that'll help it make sense as we do it. Okay, so let's copy the contents of A into B. So does anyone have an idea of how you would do this? Just specific to A and B, how would you put those values into B? B equals A? What's that?
Not specifically like that, but like that's the idea.
That's the idea, except we want to have each of the elements of B take on the elements of A without having B point at A, right? So this code right here just has B point at A. And we need to do the image down below over there, where B points to a new array that has all of the same contents. Okay, so think of it this way. First, let's put hello into B, and then let's put AP into B, and then let's put class into B, one at a time. Okay? Okay, so I want the first element of B to be hello. How do I do that? What's that? You mean just write it like this? Aha. So this does work. So now, B has all the same elements as A. And it's not a copy. Or, sorry, it is a copy. It's not pointing to the same one. Right? Because if I were to change this, or if I were to change A later, B would not change. Right? So if I were to say, change an element of A. Here's the problem with this one. is that if we were to change our code, meaning suppose we want A to say something else, B's length is now 0, right? It's permanently 0. I can't change that. Because when you do that, Java sets aside the space for it, right? So if I do B is equal to this, then it takes aside a space of size 0, and it's like, okay, here you go. There's nowhere else to put it. Okay? So then I say, please give me a space of size 3, and don't put anything in it yet. It's just hanging out there, ready to go, is the code I just wrote. Your new string and then the length that you want. So that line of code I just wrote is saying, whoop, this line of code is saying, give me a new string array of this size, ready to go, ready to fill. Okay.
We didn't talk about it yet. It's in the section, so it's a good place for it. We added another word to string A. How do we make it so that the computer automatically knows to change 3 to 4?
Ah, great question. So let's say we added another thing here, like exclamation point. Okay? So can you think of a variable that represents whatever the length of A is, whether it's 3 or 4 or whatever? So it's A dot length. It's always called the array dot length. So now, it doesn't matter how big A is, we have a string array, and its length is the same as A's length. So yeah, so we just did that. But there is something missing in our copy now. What's missing in our copy now that we made A longer? Yeah. So now we're missing B3 is equal to A3. So by doing A dot length, we were able to adapt so that it doesn't matter how long A is, right? But we weren't able to adapt this code. It does still matter how long A is. So that's our next step. So first I'm going to run this, make sure it works. Okay, so now we have our copy. Is everyone, before we move on to the version where we can change the length of A, is everyone good with what we have so far? Any questions? Okay. So now, going on with Jordan's question, if A's length were to change again, what would we do? We can only handle length 4 right now. So this is where we want to use a loop. So we're going to have a loop go over, for every element that we have in A, put it in B. And in this case, it doesn't matter how many there are in A, right? We're just going to put it in B. Now, normally, for every element we have in A, you would write a for each loop. So for string word in A, put it in B. But here's the problem. We want to have this index, like B0 is equal to word, except it's not always B0. The index is going to change. So we have a dilemma here. You guys see why this is a problem? So this is actually a better use for a while loop, where we actually keep track of the index. And the way our while loop is going to work is we do some variable that keeps track of the index. It always starts at 0. And then we're going to loop for some amount of time. And each time, we'll set B of index to A of index, right? So that every time those indices are matching, but index can change. So does anyone have an idea of what I might write here to set that index to go from A to B? So it's going to look really similar to what we had before with 0, 1, 2, 3. But now we're using a variable like this. So now index can change from 0 to 1 to 2, and we're going to be copying over each of the elements. So there's two things that are missing. The two things, and we did this in the while loops lecture. So I think we went over this where, I'm almost positive we went over this, where you need to create your variable that you're going to loop over. Then here you add the condition of when do I stop. And then at the end of your loop, you always have to change that variable in some way. You remember all those examples of, like, if you're checking that it's less than something, you always need to go up so that eventually you get to the end. If you're checking that it's greater than something, you always need to go down so that eventually you get under it. Do you all remember this? A few weeks ago? If you don't remember this, or any of these other things we've talked about, the slides are still up there. So you can go read them later and review them and make sure you remember. I mean, it's not uncommon to like go on Thanksgiving break or something and not remember things from a couple weeks ago. So that's okay, but you can review them. So we create our variable that changes. We have our logic that uses the variable. We need the end condition, and we need the thing that changes it. So index starts at 0, and we want it to go to 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then stop. Does everyone follow me so far? Okay. So in what way should I change index each time?
So it'd be index plus one.
Does anyone disagree with this? This is right. So index starts at 0. So far, if we don't loop at all, we have index is 0. B0 is equal to A0. This is just like line 7, so far we're good. This is replacing this code, right? So I should comment this out. We're not going to use it anymore. We're replacing it. So B0 is A0. We got the first line. Now index is 1. So we loop back again. And we go B1 is A1. Now index is 2. B2 is A2. Now index is 3. B3 is A3. Now index is 4. B4 is A4. Now it's 5. B5 is A5. So we could loop forever. We have a while loop. So while loops could go forever. So now we have to tell it when to stop. So when do we want to stop? What's that? When you get to exclamation point. So what is index at that point? 3. So we want to stop when index is 3. So we could do, while index is less than or equal to 3. Is this going to work? Not sure.
Once you get to never mind. I think it'll.
So this will work, right? We're repeating while index is less than 3. And so, or less than or equal to 3. If it were less than 3, what would happen? We'd stop at 2, and we lose our exclamation point. So we need less than or equal to 3 so that it includes the exclamation point. Okay. So now when I run it, yay, it copied. Okay. Am I done? So what if I change the size of this again? Just going to keep going with emoticons from this point. Yeah, so now my index should be 4, but I'm only going until 3. So does anyone have a suggestion of how to handle that? Yeah.
Can you do the like a.length thing?
Exactly. We can use a.length again, just like we used for the length of the string. So now, let's run through it and see if it works. So index is 0. 0, what's a.length? 5. It's got 5.
So minus.
Aha, there we go. So we want to end at 4. So now we're going until 4. Okay, is this going to work? Huzzah! And now it doesn't matter how long A is. We just work. Magic. I think I will for the sake of time, leave it as an exercise to you guys to put this into a function. But think about how you would write a function that takes as input any array. We basically have the contents written already. It doesn't matter how long it is, right? So you just need a function that takes as input any array and then produces as output this copy array. And we are already very close because we already have the code that doesn't care what the contents of A are, it doesn't care what the length of A is, right? So it's already a very versatile piece of code. So now you could put this into a function, and it could just take anything for A as input and produce anything for B as output. So good. That is our array copy function. Are there any questions about this? We will come up with more array questions, since it sounds like this is rocky for you. Okay, let's take a break. If you are at all able to stay until 9:30, please stay, because it's already 8:15. And this is really valuable stuff for you to know. So if you're not feeling super confident about report card / tic-tac-toe, after 8:30 will be your opportunity to learn these. Bathroom.
Oh. Wait, what is this?
No, I can't do this. I have to instead.
What are you even doing?
There.
What are you even doing?
This is what we just did, right?
Wait, okay, I'm just gonna leave this.
Okay, go for it.
Oh, it's great. I was like, why do I know this too?